The Crimson warships dropped out of hyperspace like angry gods, their massive hulls stretching across Earth's sky. Commander Thex 7 stood on his flagship's bridge, his forearms crossed behind his chitinous back as he gazed at the blue-green world below. This would be conquest number 48, and like all the others, it would be boringly simple. Standard Class 7 Civilization, Commander, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. Primitive carbon-based bipeds, chemical rockets, basic satellites, fragmented political systems. They should surrender within the hour. Thex 7's compound eyes glittered with satisfaction. The Vorthak Armada had perfected this routine across half the galaxy. Appear in overwhelming force, broadcast surrender terms, collect tribute, move on. Simple, efficient, profitable. Begin standard intimidation protocol, he commanded. Full fleet display formation. Let them see what they face. Across Earth's surface, every telescope, every satellite, every amateur astronomer's equipment captured the same impossible sight. 300 warships, each the size of a city block, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Their crimson hulls pulsed with energy, casting an ominous red glow across the planet's night side. In Seoul, South Korea, the Terran Defense Academy had been running its final war games of the semester. The facility, built into the mountains outside the capital, housed the most advanced military simulation equipment on Earth. Students from 37 nations trained here, learning tactics that their instructors hoped would never be needed. Lee. Hana bent over her command console, platinum hair tied back in a practical ponytail. At 22, she had already broken 3 academy records for strategic thinking. Her fingers danced across holographic displays as she maneuvered virtual fleets against simulated alien threats. "Your flanking maneuver is too aggressive," Park Jun called from the adjacent station. The lanky cybersecurity specialist had hacked the training system months ago, not to cheat, but to understand how it worked. His curiosity about digital systems bordered on obsession. Kim Tae laughed from across the room. "Aggressive? Hana's playing this like a chess match. Real warfare is, Messier." He manipulated his own displays, showing historical battle formations from the Korean War, World War II, even ancient naval conflicts. Tai collected military strategies like other people collected stamps. The simulation showed Earth under attack by a fictional alien force. The cadets had been running variations of this scenario for weeks, never knowing how prophetic their training would prove. That's when the first alarms started screaming. Red lights bathed the command center as emergency klaxons echoed through the mountain facility. The massive blast doors that normally remained open during training exercises began sliding shut with mechanical precision. Colonel Martinez burst through the entrance just before the doors sealed, his weathered face pale with shock. Behind him, Academy staff rushed past in organized chaos, following evacuation protocols drilled into them for situations they'd never expected to face. "This is not a drill," Martinez shouted over the alarms. "We have confirmed alien contact. Hostile fleet in Earth orbit. All personnel evacuate immediately." The colonel's eyes swept the command center, stopping on the 3 cadets still at their stations. "You 3, shut down all training systems and follow evacuation protocol. Move." But Martinez had barely finished speaking when he froze, staring at something on the main display. The simulation had changed. Instead of fictional alien ships, the screen showed real-time satellite feeds of the Vorthak Armada. Hana's breath caught in her throat. The tactical readouts, the ship positions, the energy signatures, everything matched what she'd been fighting in the simulation. But these weren't computer-generated enemies. These were real vessels hanging over her planet like swords. "Colonel," she said quietly, "our training system, they're showing live feeds." Martinez grabbed his radio, but only static answered. Communications across the planet had been jammed the moment the Vorthak fleet arrived. He looked at the evacuation route, then at the 3 cadets, then at the displays showing Earth's orbital defense platforms coming online. "I have to coordinate with Seoul Command," he said finally. "Shut everything down and get to the shelters." He turned and ran after the other evacuees, leaving the 3 cadets alone in the sealed command center. June's fingers were already flying over his console, his training taking over. "These aren't simulations," he whispered, voice filled with wonder and terror. "The Academy's training grid. It's connected to actual defense satellites, live connections to orbital platforms, military networks, everything." On the main screen, alien text appeared in harsh, angular symbols. June's translation software, designed for the fictional languages in their war games, somehow began parsing the message. 60 minutes, Tay read aloud as the translation appeared. "Unconditional surrender of all Earth governments. Resistance is futile. Submit or face annihilation." Hana stared at the tactical display showing 300 alien warships. Any normal person would have run. Any sane person would have hidden. But these weren't normal people. They were Academy cadets who had spent 4 years studying every military disaster and triumph in human history. Tay cracked his knuckles, a habit he'd developed during intense strategy sessions. "Well," he said with a grin that was equal parts excitement and terror, "they're about to learn why our history classes covered so much warfare." Commander Thek-7's four eyes tracked the primitive world below, expecting the usual display of panic and submission. Every species they'd conquered followed the same pattern: terror, desperate pleas for mercy, then reluctant surrender. The E. Vorthak had perfected this dance across 47 worlds. Sir, detecting energy signatures from the surface, his sensor operator chittered nervously. "Multiple targeting locks." Thek-7's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Primitive weapons, probably nuclear missiles. Our shields will absorb whatever they throw at us." That confidence lasted exactly 12 seconds. The first railgun slug punched through the destroyer Keth Prime's shields like they weren't even there. The tungsten projectile, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, sheared through 3 decks before exploding the ship's reactor core. The destroyer vanished in a brilliant fireball that lit up Earth's night sky. "What was that?" Thek-7 roared, his calm shattered. "Kinetic projectile, sir. Velocity. Impossible. No Class 7 species should have that technology." 2 more destroyers died before Thek-7 could process what was happening. His sensors showed the attacks coming from what their intelligence called educational facilities, places where the primitives supposedly taught their young. But these weren't random strikes. The targeting was surgical, precise, coordinated. In the Academy's command center, buried deep in the Korean mountains, Lee Hana felt like she was conducting the world's deadliest orchestra. 12 orbital defense platforms responded to her commands, their railguns charging and firing in perfect sequence. Her training simulations had never felt this real, because they had never been this real. "Platform 7 needs 30 seconds to recharge," she muttered, fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Platform 3, adjust elevation 2 degrees. Platform 12, prepare for rapid-fire sequence." The Academy's quantum computers calculated trajectories faster than any human mind could follow. But Hana wasn't just using the computers. She was thinking 3 moves ahead, predicting where the alien ships would dodge, setting up kill zones they couldn't escape. Park Jun sat surrounded by streams of alien code cascading down his screens, like digital waterfalls. His cybersecurity training had prepared him for Chinese hackers and Russian cyber warfare, not alien encryption. But patterns were patterns, and every code had weaknesses. "Their security is like a beautiful puzzle," he said, fingers flying over multiple keyboards simultaneously. "Complex, elegant, but they follow rules. Humans, we break rules for fun." He'd already slipped past their outer firewalls using techniques that shouldn't work, except alien programmers had never dealt with someone who thought like a human teenager. Their systems expected logical, predictable attacks. Instead, June fed them chaos. "I'm in their communication network," he announced. "Want to hear something funny? They're arguing about whether to call for backup. Half their fleet thinks we're a Class 12 Deathworld species." Kim Tae studied the enemy formation on the main tactical display, his mind racing through centuries of military history. Alexander the Great, Admiral Yi Sun-sin, Napoleon, Patton. Every great commander he'd studied had faced seemingly impossible odds. The key was always the same: find the enemy's weakness and exploit it ruthlessly. "Look at this," he said, highlighting sections of the alien fleet. They're using the Vythok formation, classic intimidation tactic. Big ships in front, smaller ones protected behind. Perfect for scaring primitives, terrible for actual combat. His fingers traced weak points in their positioning. See these gaps? They've never fought anyone who could hurt them at long range. Their entire formation assumes they'll get close enough for boarding actions. The aliens were about to learn that humans had been perfecting long-range warfare for centuries. Another Vorthak destroyer exploded as Platform 4's railgun found its mark. The tungsten slug punched through the ship's reactor housing, triggering a cascade failure that lit up the alien vessel like a dying star. "Sir, that's 8 ships destroyed," the Vorthak sensor operator reported, his voice cracking with panic. "These aren't primitives. Their weapons are cutting through our shields like they don't exist." Commander Thek 7 stared at his tactical display in growing horror. The attacks weren't random. Every shot targeted critical systems, reactor cores, shield generators, command bridges. These primitives understood Vorthak's ship design better than some of his own officers. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said this was a garden world. Class 7 species don't have this technology." What Tech 7 didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every science fiction movie, every military simulation, every war game had taught them to think about space combat. When the real thing arrived, they were ready. Hana coordinated another strike, watching as Platform 9's shot turned a Vorthak cruiser into expanding debris. "Their shields are designed for energy weapons," she observed, her voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Plasma bolts, laser arrays, particle beams. But kinetic rounds, they just punch right through." It was a fatal design flaw that the Vorthak had never needed to consider. Every species they'd conquered used energy weapons. None had ever thought to accelerate simple chunks of metal to relativistic speeds. "Incoming transmission from their commander," June announced. "He's demanding to know what we are." Tay grinned, the expression sharp as a blade. "Tell him we're students and classes in session." The 3 cadets had turned Earth's orbital defense grid into their personal weapon, and the galaxy's most successful conquerors were learning a harsh lesson about underestimating humans. "Update classification immediately." Commander Thek 7's voice echoed through his flagship's bridge, his forearms gesticulating wildly. His mandibles clicked in agitation as casualty reports flooded in. 12 ships destroyed in 30 minutes. Against primitives. It was impossible. His intelligence officer, a nervous creature with 6 eyes and trembling antennae, frantically worked at his console. "Sir, the database is confused. Energy signatures suggest Class 15 Deathworld technology, but all previous scans indicated peaceful garden world inhabitants." "Then your scans were wrong." Thek 7 slammed his lower right fist against the command chair. "No Class 7 species fights like this." Deep in the Academy's mountain fortress, Kim Tae was having the time of his life. The main tactical display showed not just Earth's orbital space, but the entire Earth-Moon system. His mind raced through calculations that would have challenged supercomputers, but years of studying orbital mechanics had prepared him for this moment. "Watch this," he said, fingers dancing over holographic controls. "The lunar mining station just dumped 12 tons of spent fuel pods. Normally, they'd drift for months before burning up in Earth's atmosphere." His calculations were elegant in their brutality. Using the moon's gravity well as a slingshot, he accelerated the fuel pods to incredible velocities, turning garbage into guided missiles. The Vorthak ships, still arranged in their intimidation formation, never saw it coming. Impact. In 3, 2, 1. The first fuel pod struck a Vorthak battlecruiser amidships. The explosion wasn't from the pod itself, but from the kinetic energy release, like being hit by a bullet the size of a car traveling at orbital velocity. The alien ship's hull crumpled, atmosphere venting into space as the vessel spun out of control. "Beautiful," Tay whispered, already calculating the next salvo. Sun Tzu said it best: "Use your enemy's assumptions against them." They expected orbital bombardment from above, not projectile attacks from the moon. Lihanna had transformed the Academy's training center into a command nexus that spanned 3 continents. Her fingers moved across controls that connected her to automated defense systems from Australia to Alaska. The Vorthak fleet found themselves caught in crossfire patterns that seemed to defy physics. Platform 14, in geostationary orbit, adjust targeting solution, she commanded. Platform 7 over the Pacific, prepare rapid-fire sequence. Australian ground-based railguns target the destroyer at coordinates. The aliens couldn't understand how the humans achieved such coordination. Their own fleets relied on hierarchical command structures, with orders flowing down from commanders to subordinates. But Hannah was conducting a symphony of destruction, where every instrument played in perfect harmony. A squadron of Vorthak fighters broke formation, trying to dive toward Earth's surface. They flew directly into a kill zone, where orbital platforms above and ground-based defenses below caught them in devastating crossfire. None survived. Park Jun was waging his own kind of warfare in the digital realm. His screens showed cascading code as he battled alien artificial intelligence systems that had conquered worlds. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. They'd never face someone who fought dirty. They keep trying to hack our computers, he reported, grinning as alien code crashed against his defenses. Their AI is sophisticated, follows perfect logic, so I'm giving them something perfectly illogical. His fingers flew over keyboards as he fed the alien systems a chaotic mixture of human culture. Nursery rhymes translated into Vorthak language. Internet memes converted into their data formats. Poetry that made no sense to literal alien minds. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, appeared on Vorthak command screens, followed by ancient Korean folk songs and random Wikipedia articles about cats. The alien translation systems, designed to pass military communications and technical data, began having digital breakdowns. Their computers are having nervous breakdowns, June laughed. Turns out human creativity is like a virus to their logical systems. Who knew that rick-rolling aliens would be a valid military tactic? The cascade failures spread through the Vorthak network like wildfire. Ships lost targeting data, communication systems garbled messages, and their coordinated battle. Formations began falling apart as confusion spread. Tay was thinking on a scale that would have impressed ancient generals. He'd studied every great military mind in human history, from Hannibal crossing the Alps to modern asymmetric warfare. Now he applied those lessons to space combat, with terrifying effectiveness. They're trying to flank us from the dark side of the moon, he observed, watching alien ships maneuver. Classic pincer movement, except his fingers traced new trajectories on the display. Using automated cargo haulers from the asteroid belt, he created a debris field that turned the aliens' flanking maneuver into a death trap. The Vorthak ships found themselves flying through a maze of high-velocity obstacles, while human weapons fired from every direction. This is like playing chess against someone who's never seen the board before, Tay said. They keep using standard tactics against an enemy that doesn't follow standard rules. Commander Thek 7th watched his carefully planned invasion turn into a nightmare. His ships were being destroyed by impossible tactics, his computers were malfunctioning, and these primitives fought with a creativity that shattered every assumption about warfare. Incoming transmission from the planet's surface, his communications officer reported. Put them through, Thek 7 commanded, desperate to understand what they faced. The voice that answered was young, female, and utterly cold. This is Earth Defense Command. Commander, your intelligence was wrong. We're not a peaceful species, we're humans, and you just volunteered to be our final exam. In the Academy Command Center, Hannah smiled as she watched another Vorthak ship explode. Around her, June's fingers danced over alien code, while Tay orchestrated destruction on a cosmic scale. 3 students were rewriting the rules of interstellar warfare, and the galaxy's most successful conquerors were learning why humans had never been conquered. The Vorthak. Empire's central database updated with a flash of crimson warning lights across their home fleet. Classification protocols that had remained unchanged for millennia suddenly rewrote themselves as new data flooded in from the Earth invasion. Urgent reclassification. Planet Earth. Previous status, Class 7 Garden World. New status, Class 15. Deathworld. Inhabitants, Apex Persistence Predators. Threat level extreme, avoid all contact. But the warning came 45 minutes too late. Commander Thek 7 stared at his tactical display in growing horror. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by creatures his intelligence had dismissed as harmless primitives. The remaining ships were scattered, their perfect formation shattered by tactics that defied every rule of civilized warfare. Sir, detecting massive kinetic impacts on the Vorkalam and Zeth Prime, his sensor operator reported, voice cracking with panic. But they're not destroyed, they're disabled. Kim Tae watched his masterpiece unfold on the tactical display. He'd studied Admiral Yi Sun-sin's turtle ships, ancient Korean vessels that had dominated Japanese fleets through unconventional tactics. The principle was simple. Instead of trying to sink enemy ships, disable them and capture their technology. Impact drones launched, he announced, watching as automated mining equipment from the asteroid belt struck 2 Vorthak cruisers with surgical precision. The impacts weren't meant to destroy. They targeted engine systems, weapon arrays, and communication hubs while leaving the hulls intact. 3 ships captured, minimal damage to their core systems, Tae reported with satisfaction. Their crews are unconscious from decompression, but the ships are mostly functional. Park Jun's eyes lit up as data streams from the captured vessels flooded his screens. "Oh, this is beautiful," he breathed, diving into alien technology like a digital archaeologist. Their programming language is incredibly sophisticated but completely predictable. It's like they've never heard of creative thinking. His fingers flew across multiple keyboards, translating alien code faster than the Academy's quantum computers. Years of hacking experience had taught him to think in ways that alien programmers never could. Where they saw structured logic, he saw exploitable patterns. Their plasma cannons use quantum entanglement for targeting, he explained while rewriting alien software. Elegant design, perfect accuracy, and completely helpless once I convince their targeting systems that enemy ships are actually friendly. Vessels. The captured Vorthak ships powered up under Jun's control, their weapon systems coming online with lethal precision, but now those weapons pointed at their former allies. "Irony is beautiful," Jun said, as captured alien plasma bolts began striking the remaining Vorthak fleet. "They're being destroyed by their own technology, controlled by a kid from Seoul who learned programming from YouTube tutorials." Lee Hana orchestrated the chaos with the cold precision of a chess grandmaster. Her tactical display showed the entire battle space, from Earth's orbital platforms to the scattered remains of the alien fleet. Every move was calculated, every strategy designed for maximum efficiency. "They're trying to regroup," she observed, watching Vorthak ships attempt to form defensive formations. "Standard response to unconventional tactics, fall back to what you know." But Hana had studied every military disaster in human history. She knew that armies died when they couldn't adapt to changing circumstances. The Vorthak were fighting the last war while she was already 3 moves ahead. "Platform 17, target their communication relay," she commanded. "Captured vessels Zeta 1 and Zeta 2, bracket their formation from the flanks. Ground-based railguns, prepare for coordinated strike." What terrified the aliens wasn't just the humans' technology, it was their mindset. Every species the Vorthak had conquered fought to minimize casualties, seeking surrender when losses became unacceptable. But humans fought with a mathematical ruthlessness that treated casualties as acceptable variables in victory equations. "Sir, they're not trying to minimize losses," the Vorthak tactical officer reported in growing panic. "They're optimizing for total victory regardless of cost. Our strategic algorithms can't predict their moves because they don't follow logical self-preservation patterns." Commander Thek 7 finally understood what they faced. These weren't just technologically advanced primitives. They were apex predators who had evolved on a world where survival meant thinking like killers. Every human military doctrine was built on the assumption that enemies would fight back, adapt, and try to win at any cost. "Sir, multiple ships are requesting permission to withdraw," his communications officer reported. "They're saying this isn't a conquest anymore, It's a massacre. Granted, Thek 7 roared. Full retreat. Get us away from this nightmare world. But Kim Tae had been expecting this moment. His study of military history had taught him that controlling the battlefield meant controlling escape routes. They're trying to retreat, he announced calmly. Hana's smile was sharp as a blade. Not happening. Her fingers danced over holographic controls, sending commands to the captured Vorthak vessels under June's control. Rule 1 of military engagement. Always secure your exit strategy before attacking. They violated basic tactical doctrine. The captured alien ships moved with perfect coordination, blocking escape vectors and creating a cage around the remaining Vorthak fleet. Ships that had arrived as conquerors now found themselves trapped by their own captured vessels, operated by 3 Academy students who treated interstellar warfare like solving complex math problems. Beautiful, Tae observed, watching the trap. Close. Sun Tzu would be proud. Use the enemy's strength against them, control the battlefield, never let them dictate the terms of engagement. The remaining Vorthak ships found themselves in an impossible situation, surrounded by human-controlled orbital platforms, ground-based weapons, and their own captured vessels. Every escape route was blocked, every tactical option eliminated. Commander, Thek 7 stared at his tactical display, realizing that his invasion force had become prey. These humans weren't just defending their world. They were teaching a masterclass in warfare to creatures who thought they'd mastered the art of conquest. The countdown timer on the Academy's main screen showed 59 minutes and 43 seconds when the last Vorthak battlecruiser Thek Valdor finally broadcast its surrender. Commander Thek 7's voice crackled through the communication systems, no longer the confident conqueror who had arrived an hour ago, but a broken military leader who had just witnessed the impossible. We yield, came the translated transmission. By the ancient codes of war, we surrender unconditionally to the humans of Earth. In the Academy's command center, Lee Hana allowed herself a small smile as she accepted the surrender. Around her, holographic displays showed the complete tactical picture. 47 Vorthak ships captured intact, 93 destroyed, and the remaining vessels either surrendered or drifting as lifeless hulks. Earth's orbital space looked like a starship graveyard, but not a single human installation had been damaged. Final status report, she announced to her teammates. Enemy fleet neutralized, 0 friendly casualties, mission parameters exceeded. Kim Tae leaned back in his chair, stretching muscles that had been tense for nearly an hour. You know what's funny? We finished with 17 seconds to spare. If this really had been our final exam, we would have gotten bonus points for efficiency. Park Jun was still deep in alien computer systems, his screens filled with cascading data from the captured vessels. Their entire cultural database is mine now, he said with quiet satisfaction. Music, literature, military protocols, technological specifications. It's like Christmas morning for a xenoanthropology student. The blast doors that had sealed them in during the evacuation suddenly groaned open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor as General Park Do-hyun, commander of South Korea's military forces, rushed into the command center expecting to find devastation and chaos. Instead, he found 3 Academy cadets calmly documenting their decisions in what looked suspiciously like an after-action report. "What's the situation?" General Park demanded, his weathered face showing the strain of the past hour. He'd been coordinating global military responses, preparing for the worst alien invasion in human history, only to receive reports that the threat had been neutralized by students. Lee Hana stood and saluted with textbook precision. "Sir, we've successfully concluded the training exercise. Enemy force has been neutralized with minimal collateral damage to Earth infrastructure. All objectives achieved within the specified time parameters." General Park's jaw dropped. He stared at the tactical displays showing the complete destruction of an interstellar invasion fleet, then back at the 3 young people who had somehow orchestrated this impossible victory. "Training exercise?" he repeated slowly. "You think this was training?" "Yes, sir," Kim Tae replied matter-of-factly, gesturing at the holographic displays. The scenario parameters were challenging but within expected ranges for our final examination. Enemy tactics were predictable once we identified their strategic patterns. He pulled up a detailed analysis that would have impressed veteran military strategists. They relied too heavily on intimidation tactics and assumed technological superiority would compensate for tactical inflexibility. Classic mistake that we've studied in historical contexts. Park Jun looked up from his computers, alien code still streaming across his screens. I've also managed to download their entire cultural and technological database. Should be invaluable. For my xenoanthropology thesis, their quantum entanglement communication systems are fascinating. Completely different approach from our methods. General Park rubbed his temples trying to process what he was hearing. These weren't seasoned military commanders who had just saved Earth from alien conquest. They were college students who thought they'd been taking a test. You do realize, he said carefully, that this was a real invasion. Those were actual alien warships, not simulations. You just fought and won the first interstellar war in human history. The three cadets exchanged glances. Hana looked at the tactical displays showing debris fields and captured vessels. Tay studied the strategic analysis that had led to their victory. June examined the terabytes of alien data he'd captured. Well, Hana said finally, that would explain why the explosions looked so realistic. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, emergency sessions were being called in the Vorthak High Command. Ancient generals who had conquered star systems were struggling to comprehend reports from the Earth invasion. Impossible, growled High Admiral Keth Varan, his forearms gesticulating wildly. A single academy defeated our entire expeditionary force. 3 younglings destroyed 47 worlds' worth of military might. The intelligence briefing that followed would become legendary in Vorthak military circles. Earth wasn't just reclassified as a forbidden zone, it became a case study in how not to invade a death world. These beings, the intelligence officer, reported, treat warfare as an educational exercise. They study conflict the way other species study mathematics. Every human child learns military history as core curriculum. They weaponize knowledge itself. The official Vorthak directive was simple and absolute. Earth, forbidden zone. Species designation, apex educational predators. These beings turn learning into lethality. Under no circumstances should any Vorthak vessel approach their system. Warning, they consider warfare to be homework. Back on Earth, news of the victory spread across the planet within hours. But perhaps the most remarkable part wasn't that humanity had won its first interstellar war. It was that the victors were already back to studying for their other final exams. Lee Hana submitted her tactical analysis as her senior thesis. Tay wrote a comprehensive strategy paper that became required reading at military academies worldwide. Park Jun published his findings on alien computer systems, revolutionizing human understanding of quantum encryption. All 3 graduated with highest honors. More importantly, their methods were immediately incorporated into standard military curriculum across human space. The Academy's training programs, already among the most challenging on Earth, became even more rigorous. When asked later about their remarkable victory, Tay summed it up perfectly. We just did what any good students would do. We studied the problem, applied what we'd learned, and solved it efficiently. The aliens made it easy by following predictable patterns. The galaxy learned a valuable lesson that day. Never underestimate a species that considers warfare to be homework. The end.